right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the Master of Science in Engineering at Brown University information session. My name is Victoria Bray. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Enrollment here at Brown University. I will hand things over to Ted Tracy to talk more about the plan for the session today.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Appreciate it. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it may be in your home stretch. I am Ted Tracy. Maybe go to the next slide. We can talk specifically about my introduction. I'm Ted Tracy. I am the program director for the Masters of Science degree in Electrical and Computer Engineering concentrators. And at Brown, we have several other program directors that are concentrating on different concentrations, whether it's biomedical. You have Marissa, for example, or Mike, who deals with data science. And so we have a variety of people, but the point I'm focusing on is mostly on the electrical and computer engineering department. And I partner with a senior member of the faculty, Pedro. And so the two of us will make all decisions about the master's program in terms of the concentration requirements. And as we develop new features and capabilities for the program, you'll be meeting us in terms of developing your own curriculum and improving that as we go. So a lot of great people involved with the leadership of the master's program. I'm going to tell you about it tonight. Next slide. And what you see is a beautiful picture of our beautiful building, which in front of it has the infinity sign, which we use as a symbol to show our flexibility in terms of curriculum development and collaboration across many concentrations within the school. So keep the infinity sign in mind. This is a new building that we brought online in the last 5 to 6 years, and it's really been a foundation for a lot of the growth that we've had in the department. Next slide, please. And that's kind of what leads into the infinite possibilities about the Brown Engineering Master's program. We pride ourselves on being extremely collaborative across different departments. And so Brown is a very rich curriculum of different concentrations in the basic sciences and otherwise. And we work on programs that can uniquely allow people to really advance their own interest in degrees in very specialty areas, sure. So that's a key behind the Infinite Possibility program that we have. A very diverse culture, obviously, very global environment, both at the undergraduate and the graduate levels, yet at the same time located in Providence, which is really a great up-and-coming city as well, very comfortable to work with, and not necessarily in the hustle and bustle, but very busy metropolitan city. So a great place for a college environment and for the academics involved as well. So that's Brown and possibilities within that. Next slide, please. But I look at it a little differently in that this is really a great time to come to Brown to get a master's program or any type of advanced degree as well. First of all, we're building the department, so growth is a key part of it. So we have a great staff of deans and professionals that actually drive the programs, people like myself and the people that are presenting to you tonight, very committed to growing the department and really making it world-class for everybody. We've talked about the flexibility that we have between our programs. I'm going to tell you about 3 different program degrees this evening. We have a new one that's developing called the professional track, which is exciting for a lot of people, and we'll talk about that. So a lot of flexibility in terms of the degrees that you could pursue. And I think we pride ourselves on many interesting, diverse course options. I'm going to highlight 3 or 4 of those as well. And at the same time, we're offering new and timely programs in the industry, whether it's design work that we have or focus on biomedical engineering. We really want to differentiate ourselves on the new and up-and-coming positions and technologies in society. And so you will see that we really try to grow with the times, if you will, and really develop some of the new capabilities that we have. But of course, the bottom line is the students at Brown are fantastic. And so, you know, I see every single day when I'm engaging with my students from my class that we really have a great foundation of students. And if you have great students, everything else gets worked out nicely. So a lot of collaboration, a lot of world-class thinking. That's true certainly at the undergraduate and graduate levels. And I think you'll find when you come to Brown that its most distinguishing feature is the people, is the group of people that we brought in. So next slide, please. So good timing to come to the program. And specific to the program, we give you some flexibility to keep to our namesake about the different tracks that you can take. If your goal is to come in and just get 8 credits that are going to be timely to help develop your foundation as an engineering candidate, and then you're off to industry after that, then you may be interested in option number 2, for example, where it's really a requirement to take about 8 courses in the course of a year and a half, calendar year and a half. But if, on the other hand, you were actually interested in getting some advanced degree education or topics that you may not have had as an undergraduate, and you want to dive also into the world of research, we offer that option as well. And we offer that when you get that option, which is option number 1, that you could do that with the thesis focus as well. So really get in and understand the research world. This program takes a little longer than option number 2. So that'll probably take a couple calendar years to complete because it takes a while to connect with the research group and to have a position that's been sponsored by the lead, the PI that's leading that particular research area. But that is an option if you want to still consider going into a long-term research capacity in addition to the additional educational classes that you'd be taking. And then the one that is new to the program, hasn't been announced to other cohorts or groups that are coming into the master's program, is what we call the professional option. That's option number 3. So similar to the other 2 options, you'll have the chance to go deep on certain course material up to 8 classes. But what we are going to establish is a possibility to connect with different partners in the industry and to work in the capacity of in terms of a co-op or an internship. Typically, we call it a co-op if it's going to be extended between 3 to 6 months in duration. And this would typically be a paid position, working for a company that is a partner to Brown and hopefully to the long-term interest of hiring you as a full-time employee once you finish your studies at Brown. And so this is a regimented program that you will be getting course credit to be performing in that role of a co-op. But we believe that this gives you a good mix for the individual that wants to get a little advanced training, but at the same time is very interested in becoming, going into the industry workforce when they're done with Brown. That program will take, by definition, a little longer because you're spending 6 months typically working with the partner of Brown. So we'd estimate that will be typically a 2-year program from start to finish. But so far, the initial interest in that program is very high. There are some complexities related to your visa status as to whether you can pursue this directly because we have visa requirements that we have to maintain. But not to make this a final statement, but we're getting very good signs from the U.S. Visa Department to allow us to promote this program amongst graduates like yourselves, or candidates like yourself. Next slide, please. And so regardless if you take option 1, 2, or 3, the big part of what you come into Brown for is to learn. That's what we all aspire to do in higher education, to go a little deeper on a topic. And as I mentioned, in terms of the timing comment, there's a lot of great programs coming together, a lot of growth, a lot of new professors coming into the department as well. So one of them is exactly this class that I show right here, which is the reconfigurable computing class with a brand new instructor, Pepe Zhao, who's joined us now just in this fall semester. But this is all about cloud computing and flexibility of using cloud computing to allow you to tackle programs or opportunities where you need a flexible amount of compute power. Typically, it could be large language models, for example, or it could be other types of detailed hardware simulation that you require things like FPGAs to use. And so the class is learning how to use those resources that we see in industry every day to tackle advanced research programs. This class has become very popular. It was a heavily selected class amongst the cohort of this year's master's students as well. And I think that will continue to grow as we go. So that's one option. That's an area of growth within our computer engineering department. Next one. And this is one that's been on track for a few years now, but we're starting to do things that are creative with technology. So this is the creation of art, the actual art, the art of different fluids and the fluid mechanics of different types of substances, and to actually take those and use very high intensity, high speed photography to actually create pieces of art. And we have it on display here in the Paris and Holly building, a really amazing set of pictures that shows how to use this technology to actually capture some really novel types of artwork. And so, we're not solving world hunger with this particular type of technology, but it's really advanced and it's going to be in demand as we go. And so we're really understanding how to apply technology to things that are helpful to society in other ways, such as art. Next slide, please. And then we have an area, a lot of focus on optics in the department. We have many of the professors having an optics type background, but this is interesting. This is in the area of optical microscopy, where it's a very advanced field right now. And what's nice about it is it brings together technology from optics and photonics, the physics obviously behind that, but also for applications such as biomedical and other types of materials processing as well. So this is an area that was a very good example where it's a very collaborative, cross-functional type academic background. And we really emphasize how we can collaborate between departments to use some of this technology as well. This is the difference about being a master's student. You're going to be able to take this with your perspective from other schools that you've been to and to understand how to apply it to different problems across the society. So this is a really good, interesting topic that's focused on cross-functional type learning. Next, please. And this is my class, which is actually a class that I took when I went to Brown 35 years ago. But we are actually reinvesting into the class and discovering what the capabilities of microwave engineering would be. And in the world where we have exploded with technologies such as Wi-Fi and mobile 5G and satellite communications, this is an area that we really have to bring up to speed because this is going to be a huge growth area. And I personally have committed to redesigning the class. And we start with understanding electromagnetics in terms of the classic physics of wave theory and wave implementations. But we move quickly into applications of that technology, whether it's going to be transmissions and waveguides, or it's going to be solving microwave circuit problems, or it's going to be modulation at very high frequencies, or eventually to communicate at satellite levels to different objects in space. So really had a rousing enrollment in this particular class, a lot of enthusiasm. We're investing in our lab to actually allow us to test this. And this is the kind of field that we find will be very hireable for people with this skill in terms of going to work in the areas of telecommunications and people that are doing applications such as iPhone and phone development across the globe. So microwave engineering is a key part of our computer engineering. And then also the thing that you see at Brown is that there's great investment in other areas outside of tech, outside of technology. In this particular case, the professor is a world-renowned leader in organizations, and she has a passion to develop what does leadership really mean in the organization. And we use a so-called 19 series type class to give us the student the opportunity to give a different perspective about organizations, especially in the event that you're going to go work in industry after you leave Brown. If you're not going to be an academic, for example, this could be a very useful class for you to learn and really understand the motivations and the development of different organizations that are out in the world today. So you don't have to take all tech classes. I mean, generally that is the case, but every now and then some perspective in a non-tech area could be really quite helpful to your program. Next slide, please. And so one of the questions that you would have to answer, and in general, we don't demand that you stick to an answer in your very first semester on campus, but one of the things you should start thinking is what is your long-term strategy or outcome that you're trying to get with your advanced master's degree from Brown? Are you trying to get into academics and really become a PhD-bound student? That is a possibility. Are you looking just to do a little more research and really understand the world of problems that you're interested in more closely, do some academic research around that? If that were the case, then you'd be certainly heading towards a thesis type option. I think that's program number one. On the other hand, if you really just want to get training to get a little more perspective on an academic area that you think you can use in later life in a different role, then maybe you shouldn't go through the effort to get involved with thesis in a research program. And that's kind of why we like the professional option, because the professional option will give you the ability to go work in industry after you've got some additional training that you'd like. In the event that you do research, even if you're not committed to trying to get to a PhD level at some point, we have many research programs across the campus, not a big surprise given the academic flexibility that we have. So on the next slide, I think we highlight a couple of these types of research areas. There you go, the next slide, please. And so this is in the classic area of mechanics, applied mechanics of fluids and thermal processes with that. We've had a strong department in this area for many years. We have a lot of great researchers that are going on, and the game with the research is that you want to get grants. With those grants, that funds departments and actually allows us to build labs. And in those labs, a prospective master's candidate could actually join the team and actually do the research that maybe they're passionate about and help the lab develop. The labs typically need help at all levels, from undergraduate to masters to PhDs. And so, one of the things, if you're really interested in this track, is to collaborate within Brown and find the research of an area that's most interesting to you. A lot of times it helps if you take a class from that instructor that is probably going to be the PI for a lab that you may want to go work for. So if you're going down this path, applied mechanics, this would be a reasonable pathway to take. Next one. And of course, in biomedical engineering, we've done some really novel things, and not just at the university level, but Brown is a very significant player in the Society of New England, and specifically Rhode Island, which is our home state, to actually fund the whole healthcare program going forward. It'll be called Brown Health going forward. So this area is probably the fastest growing concentration that we have at any level: undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate. And so if you want to get into biomedical engineering, there's all kinds of important, complicated problems going on that a lot of research is going into, and this would be a very logical area for any candidate to go attach to. Next. But it isn't always about the academics, and sometimes it's about the skill of the role. In industry today, there's tremendous focus on design in general, and we're very fortunate to be partners with Rhode Island School of Design, or RISD. And we have now a joint program that allows you to get a full-fledged master's degree in the area of design. In this case, you get the flexibility in the academic background that Brown can offer in many of the classical sciences. But at the same time, at RISD, you get the personal touch, the creative thinking, the design effort as part of their innate capability. And you can combine those two into a program, and we give you a master's degree with state-of-the-art training in design, which is extremely timely in the industry today. So this is a way to go to use that science along with the art, if you will, or the design of different products and concepts associated with the products. Next one, please. And then my favorite, of course, is electrical and computer engineering, which I believe is exploding. This is one of our higher growth concentrations across the campus. Obviously, computer science is growing, biomedical is growing, the electrical and computer engineering team is growing as well. We're bringing in new faculty members. We have more research going on. And I think with the preponderance of communications that are happening, whether it's mobile, 5G mobile in North America, for example, is extremely popular with a lot of research activities in that, or just the speed in which technologies are growing. And it's not just the communications thing that you see every day on your television commercials. It's typically more important things like, here I am, and I'm putting a chip into a brain, and from that I'm communicating using wireless type communications to control the actual affected patient. So really advanced things that generally are collaborations with other departments around the campus as well. And so we get a lot of great work going on there, as well as the basic communications and computer engineering stuff as well. One of the classes that I also teach is a class on embedded systems design, and we've had a world-renowned for us, a very large turnout for that class. And we have 20 different projects that are happening at one time. And a year ago, that number was only 5. So we've actually had a growth rate of 400% of people that want to build products. And we have a mix of grad students, undergraduates in that as well. So they're pursuing different products of their own interest and passion. And they're using that for interesting purposes. And that's all part of the computer engineering program that we're sponsoring and seeing a great growth in as well. Next slide, please. And it's great that we have all this academic wealth, if you will, or ability to collaborate across different departments. Again, it goes back to the point that we have fantastic students. So Anoop is one of our so-called ambassadors. He, by trade, has a fluids and thermal sciences PhD track that he's on, but at the same time, he gets involved with many computer science problems in terms of different types of systems that are used to watch our computer systems. And he is also an ambassador to help us recruit some of the new candidates that are coming in as well. So Anoop has done a great job of balancing what the school needs along with some of his basic academic research as well. Great candidate. He will get his PhD at some point, but at the same time, he's been a tremendous asset for us to promote the master's program and to show and explain to other students that are coming in, what the options are and how you can be creative about your programs as well. So great example. We have other ambassadors along the school that help out in many ways as they can as well. Next slide. And now the new piece of data, which is something I'm personally working on, is to develop the co-op program. And, I think a lot of people that may not be clear about their future plans and academics are looking to get to industry. You've got a great degree between your undergraduate training and then what you're going to get as a master's candidate at Brown. And if you can go to a company that we have a great relationship because they've worked with many Brown graduates over the years and they trust that we give them great education. And so that's a really good pathway to get yourself out of the academic side of things and into the industrial side. And so we're developing the program. We're being very specific about the requirements for the program and the timing. That's a very critical factor, and especially if this case, if there's any type of visa requirements that have to be met. But we believe that we are addressing those nicely, and just we feel positive that we'll be able to roll this program out in the future. It is already rolled out for domestic students, and we have many examples of successful candidates that have gotten their master's and also an opportunity to work as a co-op. What we're refining right now is how do we do that timing for international students, and it looks very positive for the beginning of it, first half of 25. And then, the one thing about this is there's no guarantee in this particular program. We will do our best to make the match or the recommendation to our partner employer about great candidates that we have in our master's program. You still have to go and perform on the job and ingratiate yourself to the companies and do a great job while you're employed, but we'll do everything possible to make that introduction possible and to train you in advance. And so part of this training is that there was a required class that you would take behind this called the ELI program, Experience and Learning Initiative, that allows you to prepare for what work will be like in the industry. And then to make sure that you show up and you do a great job right from the get-go, because we know you have the academic capability to do that. A lot of times it's just the environment and understanding what the workplace may be about for this type of company that we project that you could be a partner for. Anyhow, great news on this front. A lot of excitement about it, a lot of enthusiasm. We'll have more details certainly in the second half of this academic year. And by the time any candidate down the line would join us here at Brown, I'm sure this program would be well understood at that point for all opportunities. Next slide. And so when it gets down to it, this is, here I'm not trying to put a problem too far in front of out of sequence here, but when it comes down to it, you decide what your program path is going to be, whether it's the first, second, or third type of program option. And what we do is we work with staff to make sure that that set of classes that you want to take lines up correctly. We call it the trajectory of the different classes that you take over the course of your 2 years or 4 semesters that you spend on campus. And if you do the professional option, then typically you're going to be doing the co-op internship opportunity in the summers between your first and second year. That's one of the logical places to have that inserted. And so we'll work with you with the academic advisor as well as a program director like myself to pick the right classes based on all the shopping that you may do that will give you the kind of total program that you want to see you graduate with at the end of a couple of years or a year and a half if you're on a fast track. All these options are spelled out in the handbook, which I've kind of shown in the top right of this particular slide, but we've updated that and we've shown the latest and greatest classes and the different options within that. And as things like the co-op program develop, we will put the details of that particular capability into the handbook for people to understand as we go. Well, we're excited about this option. We think it's a great thing. Now, the last slide I want to leave you with is, the way I look at it is if you come to Brown and get your master's degree, you kind of win on every front. If you want to go into a full academic program, a PhD program, your master's at Brown is going to be a great entree or introduction to some other program, either at Brown or at some of our colleague schools that we work with. And you see the logos on this particular slide. They're very reputable world-class organizations. On the other hand, if you want to get into industry and start working full-time in a more hands-on way and be able to be involved with product development or business development as part of your studies, then you have sub-options both in the industrial front as well as research as is related to delivering a product to the market. So, my view on this is that we've shown time and again that we've got great outcomes in terms of students ending up in great companies. And based on that, you have a lot of flexibility. You're investing in yourself to do a great job for your career going forward. So this is something that we can absolutely advise and help with as we go. I just wanted to let you know this evening, this is the range of options that we have. So that is the end of the pitch, if you will, related to the Brown Master's Program. If there's any questions, please express those in the Q&A interval and the Q&A chat rooms, and we'll be able to address those as we go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ted. I am here to talk more about the application required for the program. You learned all this really great information, so of course you're all ready to apply. Let's talk a little bit about what we look at when we review applications for our master's program. So what's really important to us is that you're academically prepared for the program. We want to make sure that we're setting you up for success by admitting you to the Master of Science and Engineering program. So we're looking at not just your GPA, your grades and related coursework and unrelated coursework. We want to make sure that you have a strong quantitative background, a strong engineering background. This is especially relevant depending on which engineering programs you're applying to. They might have specific requirements, specific prerequisite requirements that you need to be aware of, but we'll share more information about how you can discern those requirements in a little bit. We look, of course, at your research and work experience, your goals as they pertain to the program. We'll glean those goals from your letters of reference, from your personal statement. We want to make sure that your goals, your professional goals, academic goals are aligned with things that Brown Engineering can offer to you. We want to make sure that you have strong letters of reference from folks who have either taught you in the classroom, supervised you, worked with you, people who can speak to you positively about your abilities as they pertain to your field of study or your intended field of study. I want to run through the application requirements as well. One important thing to be aware of is, unlike applying to an undergraduate institution, there is no common set of application requirements among master's programs. There's no common deadline. So really my biggest piece of advice as you navigate the application process is to really be aware of the different requirements of your different programs at different institutions. Even internally to Brown, we have different application requirements for our different master's programs. So that's just my tip as you navigate the application process. We're going to require you to submit transcripts so that we can evaluate your academic history. We want you to submit transcripts from all of your post-secondary education. You can submit unofficial transcripts as a part of your application. However, you will be required to follow up with official transcripts if you do end up matriculating at Brown. A lot of times students will ask me whether or not they need a credential evaluation, like a WES evaluation, if they went to an institution outside of the United States for their bachelor's degree. For your application, you do not need to submit a WES evaluation or a credential evaluation. However, again, much like those official transcripts, we're going to ask you to submit those if you do end up matriculating at Brown before you start your classes. We're going to ask you to submit a CV or a resume so we can get at that work experience, that research experience. What have you been doing during and after your undergraduate degree experience? Your personal statement is how we are going to understand your professional goals, experiences, and how Brown and Brown School of Engineering really meets those needs from your perspective. We'd require 3 letters of recommendation as a part of the application process. We oftentimes get questions about, if I have 2 really stellar letters of recommendation, will that suffice for my application? Can you still consider it? And the answer is no. We really need all 3 letters of recommendation in order for your application to be considered complete and ready for faculty to review. We'll talk a little bit about the TOEFL and the IELTS in a little bit. However, we will require it for students whose native language is not English. And then the GRE is going to be required for the engineering programs, such as chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. However, for the 2 programs listed on the screen, we do not require the GRE. Here are the deadlines. We have a number of different engineering programs that we've talked about, right? So we want to make sure that you keep these deadlines in mind. February 1st is the priority deadline, and then April 1st is the final deadline. Like I said earlier, a little bit more about standardized testing. You can see the school code in front of us. It's 3094 if you're interested in submitting those scores. The GRE, again, is required for the engineering programs aside from design engineering and biomedical engineering. A little note about the TOEFL and the IELTS. So we do require English language proficiency exams from folks who are not native English speakers and who do not have an undergraduate degree from an institution where the sole language of instruction is English. So for example, if you speak Spanish as your native language, but you have a degree from an institution in the United Kingdom, we would not require you to submit English language proficiency exams. You meet that requirement already by having a degree from an institution where the sole language of instruction is English. If you speak English as a native language and you live abroad, or you've attended university abroad, you still don't need to submit that exam score because you speak English as a native language. This is really for students who don't speak English as their native language and don't have a degree from an institution where English is spoken and taught. And here's a little note about sort of some feedback from our graduates. Graduates have really excellent feedback about the program. Ted shared earlier some of the work that their students are working on in lab and in the classroom. But this is just some really great notes from students that we've had in the past about the work that they've done while they've been at Brown and how much they've enjoyed their experience. So that being said, we want to make sure that we answer any questions that you have. I dropped a note in the chat earlier to have folks submit their questions through the Q&A. Now is a great time to do that. You can see on the screen, there's a number of different ways you can connect with Brown Engineering. I think that connecting with the programs over socials is a really great way to get to know what is a day in the life of a student like, what are some opportunities that are going to be available to me while I'm on campus. I'd also encourage you to check out events at Brown if you're interested in what life is like outside of the classroom, what events might be available to you, things like that. I would definitely encourage you to check out events at Brown so you can sort of put together what your day and your week might look like as a Brown student. Again, thanks for joining us. Here's some contact information. If you have any questions about the application, you're more than welcome to email us at masters_admissions@brown.edu. You can also email engineering directly with the information in front of you, engingrad@brown.edu. So that being said, I think it's time to start taking some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the Q&A.
There are 4 questions. I answer some more general questions. There are some like more specific questions, maybe Ted
Okay.
like to.
You want to read them out to me, or do you want me to just answer them directly?
Sure, I can read it. The first question will be, how would you describe the culture of Brown's BME academic spaces? What values do professors and students hold, and what goals do Brown hold for their students as they step out into the professional world?
Well, I think working backwards on that particular problem, there's all kinds of challenges in the healthcare space, obviously. You look at the cost of healthcare organizations. You look at the cost of individual healthcare for aged people and people that have unfortunately difficult diseases. There's so much opportunity out there, and the guys from Brown and their program, working between the basic science team as well as the med school, have done an awesome job of really promoting research and trying to find ways to reduce cost and more effective healthcare solutions. So I'd say the opportunity is very strong for Brown students to go into that space and make an impact.
I think next question maybe is more for Victoria. We're sending more than 3 letters of recommendation harm my chances of acceptance.
You can't submit more than 3 letters of recommendation, so it's not even an option for you. I would encourage you to just submit the 3 letters of recommendation. Choose 3. I think that schools and institutions, they're asking for a certain number for a reason. They feel like that's a good number for faculty to be able to review in a timely manner. I always say that there's a law of diminishing returns that applies to letters of recommendation. If you submit 3, that's awesome. We have a really good perspective of you in the classroom, outside of the classroom, but trying to submit 10 letters of recommendation, it gets really challenging then to review those applications in a timely manner.
I think I answered one question, Anne, related to what skills are likely to be developed here at Brown. And the thing that I see time and again, it's always about collaboration and teamwork. You can see in our engineering building and night after night groups that are working on group problems, and the ability to work as a team and to communicate within that group. You're not going to get an academic credit for that, but that experience is going to be something very handy for you in both academics as well as industry opportunities. So I think these are some of the subtleties when you surround yourself with very diverse people that are very focused on academics. It actually will help the collaboration quite a bit, and I think that's the kind of candidate that comes to Brown.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Victoria is ready to answer the transcript questions.
Yes, so I'll just answer this one out loud since we're already talking. So there's a question about sort of defining what a post-secondary institution is, and whether or not pre-university preparation courses should be included in that scope. So my suggestion is, if you got college credit for it, if you got credit towards your bachelor's degree for that, you should be submitting that transcript. If you didn't, and it was sort of to prepare you to go to university, then you wouldn't necessarily need to submit that transcript. But if you got credit for it at the university level, you should submit it. I also think that if there's sort of a lingering question about whether or not you should submit a certain transcript, keep in mind that we're looking at your transcripts to make sure that you meet prerequisite course requirements. So if you transferred from a particular institution, you don't submit that transcript to us, and you have grades or courses on there that aren't included in subsequent transcripts, we have no idea that you took calculus. We have no idea that you took an electrical engineering course. So it gets then really challenging for us to discern, yes, you have a degree in a particular field and we see high level coursework, but do you meet these foundational courses that we require to be successful in our program?
Right.
Any other questions from folks, just as we're sort of finishing up? What are the prerequisite courses for biomedical engineering?
There's BME specific info session if
Yes.
anyone interested in that.
So I'm actually going to share the portal that you can visit to sign up for information sessions. Actually, biomedical engineering has a faculty panel that's coming up in November, I believe on the 12th. So I would definitely encourage you to come to that session to learn more from the folks who are going to review your application. But you can navigate to the program specific events from the portal that I am sharing in the chat now. Should courses that are still ongoing and not shown on the transcript be mentioned in the application? Yes. So it is really nice when we have the courses that you're taking in your senior year of university or college, as well as the grades that you've gotten in those courses, of course. But I know your spring would not be available, obviously, until you go to matriculate at Brown. But, the priority deadline is February 1st. I would hope that by February 1st, you have your fall grades that you can submit alongside your transcript. I think when things are challenging is we have a lot of students who will apply early, which is fantastic, early October, and then they forget to follow up with those senior year grades. Your senior year grades and your senior year coursework is your highest level coursework. So it is important for us to see the courses that you're taking, and then also those fall grades are really nice to have as well.
Great.
Is it advisable to email professors to learn more about their research? Ted, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely possible and a good practice in general. I think you'll find a mixed response based on how busy that individual may be or whether they're in the phase with certain research or not. But like I mentioned, the best way to learn about someone's research is to take the professor's class. Even a better way is to make a inquiry into their research in advance of coming to Brown. I think that's a fine thing to do.
And then a student asking sort of how we balance undergraduate GPA with work experience. So we have a holistic review process. We look at all of the pieces of your application, including your work experience and how long you've been out of college. One thing to keep in mind is that the Brown Graduate School broadly has a 3.0 or equivalent minimum for graduate students to be admitted into programs. Now, that being said, if your GPA is below that, or if the equivalent is below that, we do consider your trend in grades. Do you have an upward trend in your grades? Did you have a really rough first year? You've done really well in your coursework since then. These are things that we do consider. And we are like student-centered in that way. We aren't looking for reasons to sort of deny students, but keep that in mind as you're navigating the application process. And if you have any additional questions, we can follow up with you kind of individually to get an idea of sort of what that looks like for you as an individual.
But I think also in the comprehensive review, if you're one that has been out of school for several years working in industry, I think it's important to communicate why this additional advanced degree actually makes sense for your career. And a lot of times you don't realize that until you had a chance to work a little bit. So that's completely acceptable path. Yeah, I think so. A lot of augmenting your application with a discussion of how you're going to use this to develop yourself is really a good thing to do as well. It's hard to compare academic grades that are very finite to, you know, subjective and sometimes not objective contributions at work. And so it's important to kind of augment, my opinion is that your application could talk a little bit about why this particular program makes sense for you to continue your, you know, after you finish your work stint, to go back into the education world for a couple of years.
And if you have context for poor performance too, share that, right? Like, we only know what you tell us in the application. So if there's important context that we need to know, then please include that in your application. Somebody asking for a little bit more follow-up on the courses available in electrical engineering. So perfect question for you.
Yes, I think when we went through the handbook this last cycle, which is in the September orientation, there were probably about 30 or 40 classes that a upperclassman or graduate student could take, roughly. They are all identified, and we can do a report to show them as well. But there's a wide range of classes, from, you know, very diverse research to things that are very common right now. Like, for example, the reconfigurable computing class has roughly about 35 grad students enrolled in it, as an example. So that would be kind of a mainstream type class. And then some of the other research that may be sponsored by the lab of the research in the PI associated with that may not have quite as heavy enrollment. But I would say it's about, you know, 30 to 40 types of classes that you could take. Keep in mind, as you move further into research, if you choose that option, then you're going to be doing more independent study or working specifically with your lab on very specific assignments associated with your research. But there's quite a breadth of classes that you could take as part of your 8-class requirements to get your master's degree. And we can identify that. I don't have that on my fingertips, but we can absolutely take an excerpt from the handbook to send that out to candidates that would like to see it.
All right. Any final questions? We've answered quite a few, which is great. Really good questions tonight. All right. Well, then I think I'll just say thank you. Oh,
Two more
the application
questions.
fee waiver. I should talk about the application fee waiver. So for folks who got an email from us inviting them to the event, you might have seen that we offered application fee waiver for attendance. That will be applied automatically to your application. So if you apply and you're prompted to submit payment, email the master's admission office so that we can troubleshoot that for you. But as long as you're applying to the program with the same email address that you used to register for this session, then that application fee will be waived automatically. You don't need a coupon code. You don't need a signature from me. You don't need anything. It'll be automatic as long as you have that same email address. And while I'm at it, there's a question about the TOEFL minimum. The TOEFL minimum for the program is a 90. So I would say yes, a 103 is excellent. Is there any chance for people without a STEM undergraduate degree to be considered?
I would say that's the whole point of Brown, is anything is possible from an academic point of view. You know, you could be self-trained, they're just a hobbyist that's learned their field and they're getting their graduate degree just to go a little deeper in a more formal way. It's really more about your enthusiasm and your basic raw capability intellectually and your ability to adapt that to a field of interest or an area that you may be passionate about. So yeah, I think anything is possible, and that's certainly not out of the question by any means. You still have to represent yourself properly on the application, but you know, I think that's exactly what Brown's all about, is looking for people that are uniquely talented.
All right, fantastic. Well, now with that, I will say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Anne, for answering all those questions in the background. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. Anne's included the engineering email address. I've included the master's email address in the slides. So have a great night, day, evening.
Did you leave, Victoria, did you leave our personal email addresses if they had questions, or does it go to a general group distribution?
It'll go to master's admission and then they'll forward it along to us as needed.
Great.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Bye.